Welcome again to the segment. I've mixed up some of the topics over the past couple of days. We've been talking at times on the use of one's own physical, mental, emotional and psychic body as the horoscope, an instrument to tune into the synchronicity of the solar and lunar energies and the energies of the other planets in the celestial environment to come to predictive conclusions to understand the type of day one is going to have and to generally become more in tune as a spiritually evolving being. I've also talked to some extent on the new perspectives of astrology, a whole new way of looking at how planets operate, rather than just looking at books, reading books, and regurgitating what thousands of other astrologers seem to be saying without actually researching those principles that are given. So tonight I just want to briefly touch on another element, which is an extension of what I started talking about in the last video. It has to do with the fact that each and every planet, naturally speaking, is assigned either a benefic or malefic quality. What does this mean? Benefic means generally giving good results, positive outcome. Malefic, the opposite, challenging, troublesome, with difficult outcomes. According to Vedic Hindu astrology, the natural benefic planets are Venus, Jupiter, the well-associated Mercury, and a bright moon which is reasonably far away from the Sun. The naturally malefic planets are Mars, Saturn, a poorly associated Mercury, and I'm going to explain that a little further, and a dark moon, that is a waning moon, or a moon that's pretty close to the Sun. What does the ill association mean? It means, in the case of Mercury, which is considered a convertible planet, a planet which rules Gemini and Virgo, assuming a rather two-faced nature. They say the reason for this is that one side of Mercury is consistently looking at the Sun boiling, the other side is freezing cold. That's why they say that the Gemini is somewhat a twin, a dual personality. Strangely too, if you analyse it a little more deeply, the other sign that Mercury rules, Virgo, also has a similar quality. I'm not sure whether you're aware of that, but do your own research and you will find that that is quite true. So this planet Mercury has a convertible nature. It tends to suck in or absorb the energies of the planet or the position that it's located in. If we were to say that Mercury was associated with Saturn, then its nature would assume the malefic aspects of that particular planet. We would then say that Mercury, temporarily speaking, is a malefic. If it was associated with Venus, a naturally benefic planet, then Mercury would convert and take on the pure energy of the benefic planet Venus. Excuse me, cheers. Your throat does get a little dry, talking here all the time. So that's the natural order of things. You'll probably notice too, if you're a Western style astrologer or a savant, that I'm not mentioning the outer planets such as Uranus, Neptune and Pluto. There are some progressive sidereal Vedic astrologers that use it. Interestingly, the classical school believed that, these planets were known of, but were never deemed to be all that important in determining the personal aspects of horoscopy or the birth time, and are more what we call generational influences. Uranus takes 84 years to travel around the zodiac, out to Pluto, which is taking 249 years. So again, that's another area for experimentation for you if you're keen to analyze that. But I do sit with the classic view that you can determine and glean from the horoscope as much as you need through the planets up to, but not including what we call the trans-Saturnian planets. And we'll also go into that a little later. To cap off, I want to briefly mention now how the naturally benefic and naturally malefic planets can assume completely different roles depending on the rising sign at the time you were born. There are 12 signs of the zodiac, and of course each planet will change its rulership of different directions or zones depending on the rising sign. If we take Mars in the instance of Aries rising, it rules the rising sign of Aries. It rules the 8th house of Scorpio. So by ruling the ascendant, it is a good sector to rule. 8th house is not so good, but as it's the ruler of the rising sign, it is deemed to be reasonably good for an Aries ascendant. Let's move to the next sign of the zodiac, Taurus, which would then put Aries on the 12th house and Scorpio on the 7th house. This would mean that Mars is ruling the 12th and the 7th. 12th house is not considered so good. The 7th house is also, according to Vedic astrology, not considered so good. So in this case, for the Taurus ascendant, Mars assumes a rather adverse role. If we then move to Gemini, utilizing the same extended view on Mars, Aries would become the 11th house and Scorpio would become the 6th house. These two houses, again, quite unsavoury, and therefore we would say that for people born with Gemini ascendant, Mars is going to act adversely for them. If we move to Cancer, Aries becomes the 10th house and Scorpio becomes the 5th house. In Vedic astrology, the angles and the trines, 10th house and 5th house, being simultaneously ruled by a natural malefic planet, this planet then assumes a very, very positive role. In fact, they have a designation for that, and it's called a Yoga Karaka. That means a bestower of great opportunity, great karma, etc., etc. So here we can see, just from Aries, Taurus, Gemini to Cancer, the varying shades of influence that the planet Mars will give. We can't simply say and restrict our readings of what will happen to a person based upon Mars on the natural influence of that planet. We must keep it in mind, but we have to tailor that to each and every rising sign. So I want you to remember that, and we're going to continue along this line of thought, so you can then look at your horoscope, or even your sun sign for that matter, and understand the one thing even lay people seem to always talk about is the Saturn return. Wow, my Saturn return is coming. Well, Saturn return is not necessarily bad for everyone. Again, depending on your sun sign, your rising sign, Saturn can be the absolutely best planet for you. If you have a Taurus ascendant, it simultaneously rules the 9th and 10th house, making it an absolutely first-rate benefic for Taurus ascendant. And generally, we would say that Saturn return may not be quite as bad as some of the other signs. In fact, depending on where it is at the time of birth, is also going to colour its disposition, its mood, and its effects on your life. So in this fashion, I hope to continue our discussions. I hope you're enjoying this. I hope it's not going over your head. If it is, feel free to rap me on the knuckles, and I'll try to do a few other segments that are going to make it a little bit easier for our lay viewers to understand more readily. Take care, and I look forward to talking more over the coming weeks and months. Bye for now. Oh, incidentally, don't forget to go to my website, astrology.com.au. My new one, psychjuice.com. That's psychjuice.com.